Tyran Stokes, oddly, might be the most underrated prospect in the country. Let's lock in and find out why.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. My name is Albert Ghim, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, PhD in the pick and roll and Long Island style pizza. We've got Corey Tulaba in the house, and today we are breaking down a player that some consider the top incoming freshman in the country, but then we also have some people who don't view him in that way. And so because there is this, I don't know, what's the right word I'm looking for? Maybe a bifurcation in terms of opinion on the player. We wanted to have a conversation about his offense, about his defense, and then also some comps. But full disclosure, it is early preseason. We don't have a ton of film to go off of. These are kind of our early takeaways before we get to see him play at Kansas. And so, Corey, if you can hit us, if we can get into the lab and you can hit us with some of the essentials on Tyran Stokes.
Yeah, Tyran Stokes, he is a 6'7", like 230-pound wing, who is headed to Kansas. He'll be 19.69 nice years old on draft night. He has, had quite a journey playing all over. Was at Notre Dame and Rainier Beach High School for his senior year. He played for the FIBA US team. Had some pretty big moments in the U19 that was loaded, with Michael Brown and AJ DeBonsa and all those guys. Played with AJ for the Oakland Soldiers in 2024, and then was part of the Oakland Soldiers for EYBL during his U17 season. So has played a lot of high level basketball, played with a lot of high level players. Is a really enticing wing as we talk about his skill set. He's a guy that we got a chance, the two of us, to get an up close look at the Nike Hoop Summit last year. This is a big time recruit. There's a reason that he is, considered to be the number one talent. Even I think if you're saying he might not be the number one prospect or the guy that you have one on your board, I think that there's a, very real argument that he is the number one talent. And we saw a lot of that, in person, in practices, flashes in the game and the scrimmages as well. So he's, I think there, it's going to be a lot of interesting dialogue with Stokes this coming draft cycle, no matter how his production goes, good, middling. There is going to be a lot because, unfortunately, I think that this might not just be a discussion about basketball a lot of the time with him. And I don't know how much we'll get into it, because I think, personally, I kind of just want to talk about what I know and what I've seen from the kid. Because, he is just an 18-year-old kid right now. But he's super intriguing. Maybe he just turned 19, but he's super intriguing prospect.
I am very much in line with you in wanting to keep this to what we know, not what we've heard, what we know and what we've seen. And I think that's all. I think that's the most responsible thing for us to do on our end, because look, there is a lot of stuff out there, right? And we've had players in the past where there's stuff out there, and sometimes a lot of it is not true. And a lot of it is just put out there as air. And when it comes to Tyran Stokes, we don't want to do any type of speculation here. We just want to talk about what we know. And to your point, when we did get to see him at the Nike Hoop Summit, what we got to see was a great teammate. We saw a guy competing, communicating, taking leadership, taking responsibility, taking ownership of the team, and like really caring about every practice, every drill, every scrimmage, every game. And that's all we can speak to.
Teammates liked him.
Teammates
joked around, guys, good chemistry on the floor. Now, here's the one thing that I'll say, that the only thing I will touch on that I've seen off the court that concerns me, on like social media or whatever, and I don't care, it's the rumors and stuff that I heard. I'm not concerned about him taking a picture with a stack of money. 18-year-olds are stupid. I had a pink mohawk at one point. So,
Never knew that.
Yeah. Dye bleach blonde on the sides, pink mohawk. Now, honestly, do I regret that? Not at all. But I'm saying we do things that maybe we wouldn't do as adults.
Sure.
So stack of money, whatever. As a New York Giants fan, a New York football Giants fan, the fireworks video did make me go, you don't need to be doing that. There are some real consequences with fireworks that I'm not a big fan of as, a New York football Giants fan who had to experience what I experienced in that. But as far as the basketball stuff, as far as what we've seen behind the scenes and with our own two eyes, based on what you hear, I think we left the Hoop Summit like pretty pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. One of the worst things that could happen to a basketball player would be to lose fingers. So, to your point, please, Tyran, no more fireworks. Let the professionals
just enjoy it.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it. There's you don't have to do it.
Yeah,
that's the point. Okay. Anyway, so with that in mind, once again, all we want to talk about is what we know and what we've seen. And when it comes to like the intangible stuff, like we saw a really good teammate and we saw a pretty adequate, strong leader is what we saw. So that's all we'll say. Now we're going to get into the offense. And this is, for me, a very interesting part of his eval, where I think there's truly where, like, what I walked away with is I saw a mixed bag when it came to his offense. And when I say mixed bag, I don't mean like a variety in terms of his combo moves, but I saw some good and I saw some areas of improvement is how I want to put it. Not to say that I saw like a ton of bad either. I don't want to make it sound like that. I just think it wasn't as refined as my brain wanted to remember it to be. And there's still some things that he's got to tighten up and sharpen up, more importantly, that I think will separate his potential being from really good player to potentially like perennial all-star type of guy and number one option, and it firmly should be in the number one pick conversation type of thing. So I guess I am kind of splitting hairs here a little bit and nitpicking, but he's kind of a name that's in that conversation, so we kind of need that early on, and we'll see what it looks like in the college season. But I know I've kind of been really ambiguous and just kind of referred to a lot of things, but Corey, if you can, take us into your early eval in terms of Tyran Stokes' offense.
So I completely agree with you. I think, there is a lot of stuff that needs to be refined, but and again, every time I watch him, I've kind of always come walking away feeling this way, feeling positively. I think this kid is as talented a number one like prospect as you can find. Like as far as like what he has available in his toolbox that some guys just don't and will never have, from the athleticism to the physicality and strength at his age to the skill set. I mean, to me, if you want to start where like I think he needs the most refinement, his shooting is very hot and cold, and I think his shot selection sometimes, especially when he starts feeling it, could be like that shot's a little too like let's take it to an 8. You're at an 11 right now with some of these like, but the display, and right now I'm just like looking for the talent. Like this is very high school AAU, and he didn't necessarily play this way in like with the US team. You know what I mean? Where it was a little more structured. You don't need the crazy like spin combo step backs, but the fact that he seamlessly has the ball on a string, like dude, his handle is ridiculous.
Yep.
He gets low, he plays high to low, he plays with pace, he could string together combos. It's insane. Now back to the shooting, because he does take a lot of off the bounce shots. Breaking down him as a shooter, softball, soft touch. I think I especially realized that in person, like how soft the ball looks. It looks like an NBA touch is what it looked like. Ball does sit in front of his head a little bit on the rise. He's got a shoulder with base, which I like, little knock knee. But he does lean back and fade on both the rise and the landing. So a lot of his shots are left short Sometimes even some of those misses are like air balls with the difficulty in the contest because of not only his form, but taking the tough shots. But he is comfortable shooting off balance. Again, soft touch, like his follow through does end at like 2:00, but I think ultimately like his shots are mostly online. But the self creation, like again, insane handle, gets high to low, attacks closeouts, even with the inconsistency with the shot. Like people respect it. I think his footwork is so advanced, dude. Like, and when he catches the ball in the mid post, and we'll talk about comps later, but there are some big scoring wings that have played in the league with, we can talk about the varying levels of that and success and, whether it's a good or a bad thing if we want, but like he gets the ball in the mid post, he could face you up in triple threat. He can knock his shoulder into you and move you off your spot. He could spin off either shoulders and take shots. Like his shot creation ability is legit. Like, and then his passing, dude, his passing is really intriguing. On the ball, like he sees some real stuff. I don't think he's manipulating guys yet, but he is making passes that end up in the same spots that guys try to get the ball to when they aren't using manipulative passes. But because he is so tall, he can spray the ball over the floor, constantly hits the weak side, really good reactionary, hits cutters. Passing can be a little lazy, could be a little loose. Sometimes, guys send two to the ball, he's not prepared. He'll throw wonky passes. Definitely needs to tighten some stuff up. Makes a lot of high risk, high leverage passes. Don't always work out. I do like the experimentation. There is a lot there. As a finisher, in transition, monster. Like his ability to weave in and out and like mid-air flexibility, like power, finesse, all sick. Finishing at the rim, stuff tough to stop from getting downhill, does shy away from contact sometimes. And I don't love that. He will try to finish over instead of through guys a lot. And he's just too big and strong to do that sometimes. But he can finish with finesse. Like he's just leaving free throws on the table. And what was it that Zach Gonzalez, trainer with Yegor Joman, AJ DeBonsa, like don't leave any food on the plate? Is that what he said?
Yep.
Yeah. He's got to stop leaving food on the plate when he gets to the rack. Like you got to go in. You should be at 8 free throws a game, like 8 to 10 in high school, like, and he should be trying to get to 6 or 7 in college. But as a talent, like overall, like there's so much there to work with. And it makes you go, man, like there are some dudes and some names that you can think of, again, which we'll get to later, but he has the package. It just really needs to be refined is what I walked away with. And I watched EYBL. I watched the US. I watched Rainier Beach. I watched Notre Dame. Like seeing him at the Hoop Summit, like in any setting, he can kind of blend into whatever you need him to. He just really needs somebody to connect with him, I think, to hone it.
Okay, so a couple of things. I'm trying to organize my thoughts. I think the first thing that I want to read from my notes that I really agree with what you said, and I think kind of encapsulates what you're trying to say. I wrote that he's a maverick, and not a Dallas Maverick, but a maverick in that he has these really interesting skills, but he's kind of like a free thinker. Like there's a little unorthodox aspect of his game considering the size and the strength. And also he's like, you mentioned how with the handle, he gets really low. There's a flexibility and fluidity to him that he has that isn't necessarily normal considering the fact that he's 6'7", 230. That's there. The fact that I'm pretty sure he's got a pretty solid wingspan. I think he was reported like 7 foot. Obviously, we don't have official measurements yet, but that's a part of his game too. I think when you watch him, the physical downhill driving is great. It really is great, and it's explosive, which I want to add as well. Serious athletic pop with him. The shooting, I love what you said because sometimes there's just a little bit too much dip on the chip with him.
Yeah,
where he gets
do less.
Yeah, it's literally NBA Jam, like he's on fire type of stuff, or he's just going wild, or NBA Street, right? Like he's just going crazy. What was it called? Game Breaker? Yeah, when he's in like Game Breaker mode and he's like trying like the wildest things. But the one through line through everything that I'm talking about that I think really keeps him in that like in that way of thinking is his confidence. This
Mm.
is a player who is supremely confident in his skill set and his athletic tools, and I think is willing to be a maverick and try unorthodox different things and to be kind of an outlier type of player is because he's so confident in what he can do. Having that type of handle, fluidity, coordination, all that stuff, I think gives you the confidence to try stuff. And the fact that he has good hand-eye coordination as well, that you see when we're talking about him like shooting a softball and stuff, I think that's all a part of it. And yes, if some of the shot diet gets cleaned up and some of the risks that he takes as a passer, some of that gets cleaned up as well. But I also like that he's like that.
Mm.
Because when we're thinking about projecting a guy who could potentially be a number one guy in their early formative years, them being kind of wild, them
Mhm.
being willing to try stuff, I think leads to a more polished product later down the line. If we want them to be all buttoned up and perfect at such an early age, for me, that kind of puts on a little bit of a cap on their growth potential and what they
Yeah.
could eventually become. And with Tyran, I'm watching him. I'm like, dude, you're kind of crazy and you're kind of like a wild stallion right now, but the chances that you're taking and the supreme confidence that you have in yourself leads me to believe in 5 to 8 years, 10 years from now, you could be a really truly terrifying basketball player because at a young age you tried a bunch of stuff. So my overall offensive kind of takeaway with him was I just wrote Tyran Stokes Maverick is kind of
Yeah.
what I put there. And that made me feel really excited about what he could become. Obviously, in a vacuum, outside of all the other noise that we're hearing, I'm just looking at like the prospect and the stuff that he's trying at his age. Like, and Corey, both of us are, young, early parents. Maybe young is the wrong word, but we're early parents, right? And we have young, very young children. Um, I like the idea of like having my daughter or you having your son try a bunch of stuff rather than us like tell them like this is exactly how you need to be and how you have to live your life, because I feel like that really kind of suppresses what they could become. I'm sorry, I'm like kind of taking this on a wild ride, but just watching Tyron, it really like made me think like he could be crazy because he's so free is
Yeah.
where my head was at.
Yeah. No, it's the last thing I'll say, and for sure, like we have some wild kids, and I try to let Mace, do whatever, he wants to try as long as it's not super dangerous, and we're always out trying things to see if he can handle it, and if he can, awesome. If not, okay. But with Tyron, like as wild as it is, it's not out of control.
Mm.
Like he's like not somebody who it's the first time behind the wheel of a race car.
Sure.
He's more like he knows how to drive it. He's just not on the track. He's street racing.
Yeah.
Like it's like, that was a little, maybe this isn't the place for that. I like that you could do it. This wasn't the place. This is not the place for it,
Yep.
So it's about like taking it from like Fast and the Furious to like NASCAR.
F1. Oh.
Yeah, F1. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I'm not big on race cars, so.
No, I totally get it. And that was actually the point that I was trying to make, in that there's a core competency that he has because of his talent that really gives him the liberty to try this stuff.
Yeah.
So 100% agree. I think there is a scary, scary ceiling on what he could become offensively. But the reason why he's in this conversation to be the number one pick is he's got a very similar ceiling on the defensive end of the floor as well. And we're going to get into that defense right after the break. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp has been a widely used online therapy platform, and today the focus is on why so many people continue to choose it. If you're curious, you can actually see what people are saying by visiting betterhelp.com/reviews, where real customer reviews are updated every day. BetterHelp has an average live therapy session rating of 4.9 out of 5 based on more than 1.7 million client session reviews. And hearing directly from people who have used the service helps paint a clearer picture of why so many people continue to recommend it. More than 6 million people globally have used BetterHelp. To get started, you answer a few questions, get matched with the therapist based on your needs, and if it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at any time. BetterHelp therapists have at least 3 years and 1,000 hours of hands-on experience, along with required education, training, and certifications. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like, and I hate to make this comp, but think about it's a Friday night, you're with your friends and you're looking for a restaurant to go to. You're going to go on different websites to get different reviews to see what their ratings are. And an important aspect of it is you want to see a place that has high ratings but also a lot of reviews, because you want to make sure that the rating is actually real and unbiased and objectively accurate. In the same way with BetterHelp, after millions of reviews, you're going to get a clear idea of how good it actually is. See the reviews, see what stands out, and see if BetterHelp is right for you. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. All right, guys, we are back and we are breaking down the dynamic and supremely talented Tyran Stokes, is going to be playing his freshman season for the Kansas Jayhawks. And we're talking about his defense now. And the thing that really stuck out to me when it came to his defense is we talked about the size, the measurables, the mass that he has. All that applies to the defensive end of the ball. But also, he plays with high motor. And going back to what we talked about with what we saw at the Hoop Summit, there's a lot to like with Tyran as a defender. The one thing that I wanted to touch on before I hand it over to you, Corey, pulling the high school stats and all that is really difficult. I felt like I found all kinds of different data out there. But the thing that I liked about watching his film is that he is a good rebounder. And when it comes to the rebounding, it's on both ends of the floor, both as an offensive and defensive rebounder. Being 6'7", having the length and athleticism that he has, and because we talk about it all the time, but rebounding gets slept on. And people sometimes, maybe that's too general of a statement, but I think we can sometimes forget how important it is to clean the boards, both defensively and offensively. If you look at players like Steven Adams or Mitchell Robinson and what they've offered as offensive rebounders, and them being elite at it and contributing to winning teams defensively, right? How important it is to be, even if you're not the best rim protector, if you're a good rebounder, you can stay on the floor. A guy like Karl Anthony Towns is like the elite rebounder, not the best rim defender. With that being said, when it comes to Tyran, I think for his size and the position that he's going to play, I think he's a very solid rebounder, has a good eye and a good way of tracking the ball off the rim. So with that being said, Corey, give us your eval and what you saw from Tyran on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of potential as an on-ball guy. I don't think he's going to be a shutdown guy because I don't know if that'll be his role early on. I think he'll be pretty offensively tilted. But something I noticed is he's not getting a ton of on-ball reps at the high school level, in his youth career, because why are you going to send the ball in his direction? But when he does, he can really sit and get low, similar to his handle. Like he can get low, he could slide. I think he flips his hip really smoothly, and he can test with length. But I think what got me excited is he's used a lot as a roamer. And he has like some pretty legit weak side shot blocking stuff and also some chase down block stuff. Like his ability to time blocks is pretty impressive. And it reminds me a lot of Ace Bailey. Like Ace is not a guy, right, who's going to be the primary rim protector on the floor, but he is a guy who uses and leverages all of his athleticism and some of that defensive feel to slide over and really make an impact and at least make guys think. And, I think that they both were guys who at the youth levels were able to serve as kind of like the primary rim protector, but I think that's going to be beneficial to them when they are, not needed to do that at the next level. So that was really impressive. I think he's got quick hands in the passing lanes. The thing about the passing lanes is when he does, like sometimes he does take risks and he takes himself out of the play, and like you need to take risks, but they do have to be calculated. Sometimes it seems like he's hunting for steals.
Yeah.
And he's also like, he also, when he does take a risk sometime, he's not like the quickest to get himself back into the play. And coaches won't love that. And he's also, when he is sliding over as a low man, I notice sometimes he does hunt those blocks as well. And he'll even leave his feet sometimes. So like with crafty passers, you'll be able to get him to bite and get off his feet. And then it kind of makes it harder for him to like recover and X out like on the recovery. But like, as far as like the raw skills off the ball, I think he's mostly in the right spots. And the actual like ability to create defensive events and generate stocks is pretty impressive. And again, I think his shot blocking is legit impressive. So, I want to see what he looks like on the ball when he has more reps at the college level and there's bigger, stronger guys that are he can match up with, but he has all the requisite skills, I think, to be that guy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think something that I noticed with the high school, and I don't want to make excuses. So this is not me doing that. This is me kind of theorizing here. I do wonder if at times, like that high school level when he's playing at like Rainier Beach, wondering if sometimes like the level of comp or like, the opposition kind of got in his head a little bit with how he was defending. Not to say that he was like lazy or anything like that, but when you talked about like the risks that he was taking and maybe him kind of bleeding out of like, the fundamentals and how you want someone to be defending off ball or in the passing lanes or whatever, I do, just a theory, wondering if sometimes that got in his head a little bit, but still, it's something that he's got to clean up. And now he's playing at the highest level of college basketball, so that's got to be there. And I think at Kansas, to your point, if he's going to be a big emphasis for them on offense, then of course defensively there will be some questions about how much he can really, how much bandwidth he's going to have. Right, maybe that's the best way to put it, as a defender. But in terms of like skill set and like pure talent and the type of defender he can be, I think he's got a lot of it. So it'll be up to him to kind of balance that out and to make that work within that context. So I agree with everything that you said. So
yeah, I think he's gonna be legit, like straight up. I think he's got all the skill. Like he has the potential to be a real impact two-way guy.
Yeah,
So there's a reason he's being talked about as number one. And, I just like, even if, it's a very up and down season, obviously like Darren, this, what we thought was like bulletproof guy goes to Kansas, has this up and down season, these things happen, right? Like I still see a pretty high floor for where he ends up just because of his two-way ability.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there. The potential's there. Let's see how it looks in that context. Fingers crossed that hopefully his season looks a little bit different from Darren's. But with that being said, when it comes to his offensive package, the defensive versatility that he has as well with his size and all that, I think there are some former NBA players or current NBA players that also come to mind, and we'll get into those comps right after the break. All right, guys, we are back, and we're talking comps. We're talking about some guys that, as we did our film breakdown of Tyran Stokes, some guys that came to mind. So, Corey, if you can, hit us with some comps for Tyran Stokes.
Okay. First one. What if he is like a 2-inch taller? Maybe one? I don't know. We'll see what he measures in. Like J-Dub, like Jalen Williams. I don't know if in my opinion, his best role is going to be the number one scorer, primary guy on an NBA team. I feel like he could be an elite sidekick. And it's not a role he hasn't shown that he can play before. Right. So I feel like with like the dribble, pass, shoot, defend stuff, like, and the strong frame, the long arms, like, right. I think that Jalen Williams is a guy that, like, if he aspired to be that, I think there's some real impactful basketball ahead of him in the NBA. Mm-hmm. I think that watching him, like, and I think he's smoother than Paolo, but there's like that Paolo Banchero, Carmelo Anthony in him, like big wing, ball in the mid post, kind of like turnaround faders, quick footwork, even like quick second jump on the offensive glass. So I think there's like a little bit of shades of that. I think if there's like this like almost like median outcome, like maybe a Tobias Harris is a guy, with maybe a little bit more natural playmaking feel, but maybe not as in control of the game as Tobias has been. And then if things fall apart, and I think their bodies are quite different, but maybe a lot of the skills are the same, and I have more confidence in his shot. But if he's going to take tough ones, maybe a little Josh Jackson, and not Captain Duck, the Phoenix Suns one.
My camera left me for a second, but J-Dub one I think is really interesting, just because I feel like, to your point, the vision of him being an elite number 2 option, or maybe you look at it as like a 1B option. Even if you look at how important J-Dub was in that title winning run for the OKC Thunder, he had some huge games and huge moments, and he was pivotal in terms
40
of them
balls.
winning. Yeah, right, exactly. And they don't win that title without him, right? And you see how different the team looked without him this year, when he was struggling with injury and them not being able to finish off the Spurs like a lot of people thought they could.
I think that's why they didn't repeat. If they were fully healthy, I think they beat the Spurs, and then I think they beat the Knicks.
Yeah, definitely possible. I won't say that with my own mouth, but totally.
You don't need to. You're wearing your finals shirt right now.
Yeah. But with that in mind, I think, okay, so for me, I had a lot of trouble coming up with like high-end comps for him, because like I was like, okay, like I've seen stuff out there about like Scotty Barnes and blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't know if I exactly see that, just because maybe I have like a firmer belief in the outside shooting and like him being able to create and stuff like that.
I also there's also, even though we went to P3 and they were like, Scotty Barnes is a freak athlete, like obviously he is. I also just think like Scotty moves like a forward, and Stokes to me moves like a guard.
Yeah.
Like there's just a kinesthetic advantage as like a big, strong guy that he has as an offensive mover.
Yep.
To me.
Yep. Which is why my brain didn't really go there. I actually, the one that I'm most confident about is my low end comp, where I thought like at the very, very worst, at his absolute floor basement, he could be Miles Bridges. Is kind of where my head was at.
That's interesting.
Right? Like I feel like
that's an interesting one.
If it doesn't work out at all, and he like struggles with stuff, still look at Miles Bridges' career outside of the off court stuff, you know. But in terms of like his production and his play and what he's been able to offer, I'm wondering if that could be a basement floor option.
Yeah, I like that.
Where he becomes like that.
Yeah, I like that. That's an interesting one.
I think it's something's there is kind of where my head is at. The high end stuff, I struggled. I thought of certain guys. I actually don't feel great about any of them. And I think you might just have the best one, where if everything works out, J-Dub, and at 6'7", which is terrifying.
Because like J-Dub could theoretically lead his own team, and I think that team would still be a playoff team. I don't know if he could be the number 1 guy necessarily. Maybe he could, but I think he's better suited to be the number 2 who can be an overqualified number 2.
Right. And in this draft class, getting a guy like that, an overqualified number 2, could definitely be worth the number 1 pick in the draft. And so with that being said, we thank you guys so much for joining us today for our pod. And we have another exciting pod for you guys coming on Friday. But as always, my name's Albert. He's Corey. Talk to you guys soon.